أفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على النبي الأمي المكي المدني القرشي الهاشمي الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام الناس عبيد الدنيا والدين لعق على ألسنتهم يحوطونه ما درت معايشهم فإذا محسوا بالبلاء قل الديانون. Respected brothers and sisters, our august viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace, mercy and guidance of Almighty Allah be with us. As we are moving ahead in our nightly programs, we are discussing about the tragedy of Karbala, the movement of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, the grandson of our noble Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and circumstances which were there at that time, and how we benefit from it, and how we can take lesson from it, how we can educate ourselves about that historical event, and how we can motivate ourselves, and how we can perform like our Imam, how we can perform like the martyrs of Karbala, how we can sacrifice our time, how we can sacrifice our efforts, how we can sacrifice ourselves in the time of need for the sake of Islam. And that kind of motivation we can derive from the history of Karbala, and particularly the sayings of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, and his sermons and his slogans. And these are very good means and tools for us to be among the martyrs of Karbala by our performance, by our actions. My dear brothers and sisters, each one of us are potential to be like Zuhair ibn Qayn. Despite of having difference of opinion before, once you join the mission of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, you become a part of it. And each one of us are potential to be like Abu Thumama as-Sa'idi, who remind Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam of prayer in the Zuhr of Ashura. And Imam alayhi salatu wasalam mentioned about him that Zakarta salat, Zakarta salat, Ja'alakallah min al-musallin. You remind me of prayer, may Allah raise you in the day of judgment among the musallin. Each one of us are potential to be like Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi, despite of committing so many sins, he repented and he came back to the camp and the tent of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salatu wasalam. And each one of us our potential to be like him. We all commit sin as a human being. We do wrong things. We have so much of lacking in our lives. But these majalis, these gatherings, the month of Muharram and the month of Safar, which is dedicated to Imam Hussein and the history of Karbala, we can benefit from it. We can motivate ourselves to follow the footsteps of Hurr ibn Yazid al-Riyahi and return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it happened during the history of Islam and the recent history. There were many who did wrong in their lives, in their lifetime, and the Muharram and Ashura changed their lifestyle, changed their mentality, and they were able to perform the best possible for a human being in their time. And each one of us potential to be among the martyrs of Karbala by performing our duties and fulfilling our responsibilities, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us like the reward of the martyrs of Karbala. There are many riwayat and traditions by our imams concerning this. We have potential, but we need to encash it. We need to perform it. We need to do it as our martyrs of Karbala did in Karbala. So this is something that it needs lots of efforts. It needs a sincerity. It needs a focus, and it needs us to try our best to attach ourselves with martyrs of Karbala. As I mentioned, we have both the good performance and bad performance in Karbala. Both sides were there. One side was haqq, the other side was batil. As we are potential to be like Zuhair ibn Qayn, as we are potential to be like Abu Sumama as-Sa'idi, as we are potential to be like Hurr ibn Yazid al-Riyahi. God forbid there is a devil within us and it can make us like there is a potential to be like Khawarij. There is a potential to be like, God forbid, Umar Saad, and there is a potential to be like Shimr. May not be up to that extent, but somehow our performance, God forbid, if we're not focusing on the principles of Islam, if we're not purifying ourselves, if we not motivate ourselves from the movement of Karbala, the situations, the circumstances may drag us to do like what, God forbid, Shimr and Umar Saad did. So we need to focus, we need to understand what made them to be like Khawarij, what made them to be like Shimr ibn Ziljawshan, what made them Umar Saad. So if we understand properly, then we can try our best to prevent ourselves from those bad characters, and we can try our best to emulate the martyrs of Karbala. There is a book named Gunahane Kabira, the major sins, written by Ayatollah Shahid Dastagir, and in the preface of the book he mentioned beautifully that if we don't know about the major sins and the consequences of major sins, we may not prevent ourselves from committing major sins. So knowing major sins and the consequences of major sins is obligatory and part of educating ourselves, a part of reforming ourselves, the part of purifying ourselves. So here in the battle of Karbala, in the tragedy of Karbala, in the movement of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, knowing the bad characters, how they turn against the principles of Islam, against the pillars of Islam, against the infallible Imam. What made them to be like that? If we know, we can prevent ourselves from being like them. As I mentioned, there is a potential within all of us, especially the present circumstances coming to us, the whispers of shaitan, the media, and circumstances coming to us. We may follow the footsteps of wrong people. So we need to understand their characters. We need to understand how they become like this. And we have to purify ourselves. We have to try our best to prevent ourselves from being like them. As I mentioned last night, Karbala, both we can take lessons and also edifications. We can educate ourselves in focusing on both characters, good characters and bad characters. We have to try our best to do like the martyrs of Karbala did and perform, and we have to try our best to abstain from what the Zalimeen did in Karbala, what the wrongdoers did in Karbala. Khawarij, they never became Khawarij just like that. Now we understand them after reading the history, but in that time it is hard to make a decision. As I mentioned last night, that Khawarij, Ibn Abbas went to Khawarij and came back, and he described how they used to live, the lifestyle of Khawarij. They never used to sleep during the night. They never used to eat during the day, meaning they were fasting during the day and offering prayers during the night, reciting Quran, memorizing Quran, not having proper understanding of principles of Islam. They were just performing prayers and fasting and reciting Quran. And that leads them to stand against the Imam of the time. So you will see there are many people in our societies, the mentality like Khawarij, as Martyr Mutahari mentioned beautifully, that Khawarij dead, Khawarij dispersed. We are not finding the Khawarij into existence now. But the mentality of the Khawarij still exists in different communities and different societies. And God forbid, we not supposed to be among those, and we not supposed to have such a mentality. So we need to understand properly. 12,000 people being a soldier or soldiers of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam in the battle of Siffin, they stood against Imam Ali just because of one deception by the Amr As. They took the Quran on the spear and they said, La hukm illa lillah. We can come under the Quran. We can have arbitration. We can have peace treaty. What happened? Up to 6 months, Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam inviting them towards Quran. They were not coming. They were not listening to Imam Ali. All of a sudden, while they were seeing that they are losing the battle, within an hour, let's say, then they used this trick to deceive the people, and they succeeded, unfortunately, because of the mentality existed in the army of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. The ignorance which were there among the soldiers of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. 12,000 people turned against Imam Ali and said, no, you have to have peace treaty with them. You have to accept the arbitration and hakamiyat. And Imam Ali was denying, but they forced Imam Ali to accept that. And while he accepted, and they had argument on fixing the person and an ambassador to debate, and unfortunately they end up fixing the Abu Musa Ash'ari from Imam Ali's side. They forced Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam to send him as a neutral person. And I don't have much time to elaborate. And what happened? After that, and the As deceived Abu Musa Ash'ari, and it the arbitration also not succeeded. And then they turned against Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. And they said, we all committed sin, we have to repent, and if you're not, then you became kafir. Astaghfirullah. The mentality. And among them was Shimr ibn Zil Jawshan. Shimr ibn Zil Jawshan was in the army of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, fighting against Muawiyah. And you see, do not be happy for your present situation. You have to make dua and put efforts not to deviate from right path. Circumstances may come and it may deceive us. The dunya, the hubbud dunya, the love of the dunya may change our mind. So that's why one of the great personalities who were in one of the harams, one of the holy shrines, a person asked him, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow you to ask only one dua, what you may ask? Each one of us may ask different things. But that renowned scholar said that I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala my good ending. My ending must be with Iman. My ending must be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With firm Iman, I have to depart from this world. There is no guarantee. We are good now. We are with Islam now because there is no trial, as Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam mentioned beautifully, that An-nasu Aabidi dunya. People are slaves of this world. Religion is just what they say. It's a rolling off their tongue. And they use it as long as it provides them with their living. So once we have everything is okay with us, our interests are maintained, long live Deen. There is no problem with the religion. But when they are tested, there remain only a few true religious ones. When we see ourselves in trial, in the time of sacrifice, how many remain? That is very important. So now there is no time of sacrifice. We are okay with Deen. So if the time comes for sacrifice, if the time comes against our own whims and wishes, what we do, there is no guarantee. So we have to train ourselves. We have to empower ourselves. We have to strengthen our Iman up to a level that no circumstances should deviate us from the right path. And the history is very good for us to remind ourselves. The Shimr was offering prayers 5 times daily. He was the reciter of the Quran. He was, the major part of the Quran he memorized, because he was, while he was talking, he was using the Quranic verses. And he was the part of the army of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, fighting against Muawiyah. What else you need? But in the time of self-interest, he gave up the deen, he gave up the Iman. And he turned against the Imam of the time. He turned against the infallible. He turned against Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. And then he returned back. He came to Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam, accepting his imama, and he was ready to fight against Muawiyah. And while Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam signed the treaty with Muawiyah, the peace treaty, then he again turned against him, Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam, and even he used wrong words against him. And you see, since then he went to the camp of Muawiyah, and Muawiyah's son Yazid, he was ready to fight against Muawiyah. He objected Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam, why you are not fighting against Muawiyah, and he himself went to the camp of Yazid. Once the interests are maintained, once the dunya is maintained there, how the people change. And he changed, he turned against. And it is mentioned about the Shimr. He was very brave and very courageous and fighter, He was fighting in different battlefields, but what about the mentality, the mindset, the hubbud dunya? And he is the one who encouraged Umar Saad to go against Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. Umar Saad, in the beginning, he was not ready. We are coming to discuss about him as well. He was not ready to fight because he was well aware of the dignity and honor of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. He was well aware of the hadith concerning about Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. He was well aware of the personality of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. And he was also well aware that if he is going against Imam Hussain, there is no fragrance of paradise. There is no chance that he can smell the fragrance of paradise. So he was trying to avoid the situation. But the Shimr ibn Ziljawshan encouraged him, and he said, if you are not going to fight against Imam Hussain, I will take the lead. I will take the position. And he was able to secure the letter from Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad that if you are not ready, if Umar Saad is not ready, then Umar Saad should give up the leadership and commandership, and he had to hand over to Shimr ibn Ziljawshan. And because of that situation, because he was losing, that he cannot be the governor of the Ray, and he took the position. That was the Shimr ibn Ziljawshan. And finally, he is the one who killed Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. He is the one who slaughtered Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. And there is a discussion between Shimr and Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. In last minutes, Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam even tried to guide the Shimr ibn Ziljawshan, at that circumstance. While Shimr ibn Ziljawshan was on the chest of Abu Abdullah Hussain, Imam Hussein's eyes were filled with blood, and Imam Hussain was asking, Man alladhi irtaqaita laqad irtaqaita murtaqan azima. Who is on my chest? Whoever on my chest, that place is highest place, the place where Rasulullah used to kiss. And then Shimr introduced himself. And then he asked, are you not aware of my personality? He said, yes, I'm well aware that you are the son of Ali. You are the son of Fatima. You are the grandson of Prophet. So he was well aware what he is doing. And then Imam said, why you are about to kill me? He said, the leadership, the governorship, the wealth, the money, the position. Imam said, I will give you the money. I will give you the land in Medina, the best land in Medina. He was not ready. He was said, though that may be the credit. I want cash. It is promised that I may be the governor of Ray. Then Imam said, I can guarantee the Jannah for you. Just imagine up to how low a person can go. That Imam of the time, the master of the youths of paradise, is promising the Jannah, and the person is ignoring. And he never ignored, he never said that you cannot do so, because he was well aware that Imam Hussain is the master of the youths of paradise. If he promised, he can do so. He never replied that you cannot do so. What is the guarantee? No. He said, that is the credit and I want cash. The attachment with dunya, the interest of dunya, the hubbud dunya, the love of dunya, the love of position, makes person like Shimr. And likewise the Umar Saad. As why I am mentioning these things, we all have potential to be like them, my dear brothers and sisters. There is a danger for all of us while we are see ourselves in that circumstances. One side is dunya, one side is position, one side is wealth. We may lose the deen. We may lose our faith. Not necessarily to do exactly what Shimr did, but we can do similar to them. So there is a danger. Instead of just talking Karbala, we have to walk Karbala, my dear brothers and sisters. We have to train ourselves. We have to motivate ourselves in these majalis. Otherwise, just coming and sitting and going out is never change anything. We have to change our mindset. We have to change our mentality. We have to make our iman firm, strong, and that needs lots of effort. Because in the time of trial, we can demonstrate exactly who we are. In the time of in ordinary time, anyone can say anything, anyone can claim anything. But in the time of trial, in the time of difficulty, in the time of sacrifice, how many people stand firm, that is something we need to understand. And we need to try our best to be like martyrs of Karbala. No matter what comes, it's one of the scholars mentioned this, that it's very interesting and very beautiful point, that what the martyrs of Karbala did in Karbala, seeing that the infallible Imam is there, Imam Hussein is there in front of them, is not a big deal. Because if we also have Imam Hussein amongst us, we can also perform like this. Since we don't have Imam Hussein with us, we have confusion. We cannot do so. So what the martyrs of Karbala did is not a big deal, because Imam Hussein was there. So it was easy for them to do what they did. And he mentioned this, and he dreamed. He dreamt that he was in the battle of Karbala. He was with the camp of Abu Abdullah Hussein, the tent of Abu Abdullah Hussein. Imam Hussein asking him to come closer to him, and he went closer to him. And Imam Hussein said to him that, let me offer my prayer. You just stand. When the arrows coming from our enemies, you have to take the arrows. You have to defend, not let the arrow come to me. Let me offer the prayers. He said in dream. So I stood, but one arrow came to me. It was hard for me to take on me. So I moved myself in one side, and the arrow went to the foot of Abu Abdullah Hussein, and I just woke up. And then I realized that what martyrs of Karbala did in the day of Ashura is not a joke. It's not an ordinary thing. Taking the arrow, knowing that it is hitting our chest, defending our Imam, is not an easy task. You need to have a firm Iman for that. So are we ready for this? We ask normally after every prayer, we make dua that Ya Sahib al-Zaman, Yabn al-Hasan al-Askari, Ajil ala dhuhurik. Meaning, oh Imam Mahdi, you come back, and we are here to assist you. We are here to be among your soldiers. And when really he reappears, are we ready to be among the soldiers of Imam Mahdi? Being among soldiers, it not just going there and drawing the salary. It needs a lot of sacrifice. So for that, we need to start from here. What we are doing in a daily basis, that tells us that can we be among the soldiers of Imam Mahdi or not. For little thing we are lying. For little thing we are doing wrong things. For little thing we are combating with others. For little interest we say wrong things to our elders. So how much sacrifice we are giving now? So we can expect in the time of Imam Mahdi we can shed our blood. So each one of us can judge ourselves. So we need to understand the characters of Karbala, both the good characters and the wrong characters. The Shimr ibn Zul-Jawshan never became Shimr just like this. There is a history, there is a background. While you are objecting on Imam of the time, while you are raising your voices above the voice of the infallible Imam, that's make you Shimr ibn Zul-Jawshan. If you're not listening to Imam of your time, that's make you Shimr ibn Zul-Jawshan. And then Umar Sa'ad. Umar Sa'ad, you know the Umar Sa'ad. Umar Sa'ad was the son of the Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqas, one of the renowned and very famous companions of Rasulullah. He fought for the cause of Islam a lot. And he had a very good influence. Up to level that after the second Caliph made him among the 6 members who select the Caliph after him. And even he had plans to be Caliph. In the time of the Battle of Siffin, during the arbitration, during the Hakamiyah, while he saw that the people are shaky and their mindset is different, Umar Sa'ad encouraged his father to claim his Khilafah. But he saw the situation that it is not so easy, so he denied. So that was the Umar Sa'ad. From young age, his intentions were different. He was offering prayers on time. He was memorizer of Quran. He was reciting Quran. And he had a very good image in society. People were believing in him. Many people are following him because of the sacrifice made by his father. He built up his influence. And when time came for him, he was there in Kufa, watching the situation, finding the opportunity. While Muslim Aqil came and it was the uprising against the Ubaidullah, against the Yazid. At that time, the governor was Nu'man ibn Bashir. He was a bit lenient. He saw the situation. Umar Sa'ad wrote letter to Yazid and he proposed that Nu'man ibn Bashir is not capable. Immediately you need to change Nu'man ibn Bashir and change the governor of Kufa so they can tackle the Muslim Aqid. So he was playing, he was trying. And then Yazid sent Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad as a governor, and he did what we all read in the history. And even in the time of Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, he went to him and he was about to go towards the Rai, part of the Iran, for governorship. Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad asked him back, no, you have to fight Hussein first. While you perform here, then you are going to be the governor of Rai and that area. And he made excuses, he tried to avoid, because he was well aware that it is not easy for him to fight against Imam Hussein والسلام, but that was it. So while he saw that he cannot achieve the governorship without this, and he made himself ready. He agreed. And then he came to Karbala with his soldiers. And after the encouragement received by Shimr ibn Zul-Jawshan, he was the one who made the decision. And in the day of Ashura, he shoot the arrow first. And he mentioned that you all testify that this is the Umar ibn Sa'ad who first shoot the arrow. And he started the battle against Imam Hussain ﷺ. So my dear brothers and sisters, no matter how you're performing now, no matter how good you are now, but this is the constant struggle. In the time of need, in the time of sacrifice, in the time of trial, where we can be, that is determined by our actions now. Every action has its own reaction, has its own consequences. If we do good, that leads to another good. If we commit a sin, that leads to commit more sins. That may provide doing good. That's why it is mentioned that ijtinabus sayyi'at awla min irtikabil hasanat. Preventing from committing sin is better than doing good, because one sin leads you to commit another one. Shimr never became Shimr just like that. Umar Asad never became Umar Asad just like that. After a course of years and years, after committing many sins, after particularly concerning the imams, concerning our leaders, concerning our jurists, concerning our ulamas, if you open up your mouth against them, slowly you are adopting the characteristics of Shimr and Umar Asad, and one day you move towards that. So you have to be careful while you are speaking about the ulama. You have to be careful while you are speaking about the jurists and fuqaha. You have to be careful while you are talking about our infallible imams, particularly about Quran, about principles of Islam. If you careless, that may lead you to go in that direction. As I mentioned, we have both the characters, the good character and the bad characters. That's why Karbala is a criterion. Karbala is a turning point where a person can find everything. The person can motivate, person can change, person can reform, person can create revolution within ourselves and within family members, within society. The whole world can be changed. As I did mention in my previous lectures, that the great personalities, the politicians, the economists, the philosophers, the ulama, the jurists, everyone benefited from the tragedy of Karbala and the movement of Abu Abdullah Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. The Karbala is not just a history. Karbala is not just past. And unfortunately, some of our Muslim brothers and sisters, they don't care about it. And they're not, even some of them, they are not aware of the tragedy of Karbala. I recommend my dear brothers and sisters to open up the books. Tariq al-Tabari. Tabari is a renowned Sunni scholar, a very good scholar among the Muslim Ummah. Open up his book, just check what he wrote about Karbala. He wrote pages and pages, hundreds of pages about the tragedy of Karbala and the movement of Abu Abdullah Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. We have to commend him, his efforts. And how many of our scholars are talking about this now on our pulpits? How many of our masajid talking about Tariq al-Tabari and this part of Tariq al-Tabari about the Karbala and the tragedy of Karbala and the movement of Abu Abdullah Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam? How many of us talking about, especially in the month of Muharram? All we are talking, the fasting in the day of Ashura is the Sunnah. Is like they are focusing more on this more than like the obligatory thing. I never heard people talking about the fasting in the month of Ramadan as they are talking about the fasting in the day of Ashura. There is a debate about this. But how many of us talking about the sacrifice made by Imam Hussain, the grandson of Prophet, about whom our noble Prophet said, it is recorded in Sahih Bukhari, in Sahih Muslim and many other books, that Al-Hasan wal-Hussain Sayyada Shabab Ahlil Jannah. If you want to go to Jannah, if you want to smell the fragrance of Jannah, you have to pass through Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. Otherwise you cannot allow to be among the people in the Jannah. So how much we are talking about the tragedy of Karbala, how much we are talking about the legacy of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. If there is, it was the sacrifice made by Imam Hussain was not there in Karbala, we had the Yazidi Islam. If you are enjoying with prayers, if you are enjoying with fasting, if you are enjoying with Quran, if you are enjoying with the teachings of Al-Islam, it's all because of the sacrifice made by Imam Hussain. Otherwise you had the Yazidi, you had the liquor was there in Islam, the haram things were there in Islam. Just the name of the Islam was there, and everything the Umayyad promoted, that was the Islam he had. So Imam Hussein preserved the Islam. Imam Hussein safeguarded the Islam. So is it not deserve an honor? Is it not deserve to talk about this? This is my appeal to all my brothers and sisters. Open up your minds. This coronavirus may be a good lesson for us. Always things are not favoring us. Sometimes we have to find ourselves in trials. In the time of trial, we have to open up our minds. We have to open up our minds and check the history properly. Read the history. Do not just be listener. Nowadays, there is no excuse, as I mentioned. You can just, within a click, you will find the truth. Open up the Sahih Bukhari, open up Sahih Muslim, check about the hadith about Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, and you will find all those ahadiths I did mention during these nights. And also, you can check the Tariq al-Tabari, a renowned Sunni scholar. Hundreds of pages he wrote about Karbala. And once you read about Karbala, if you are a human being, your heart will melt. The family of Rasulullah, the grandson of Rasulullah, butchered in the plains of Karbala, and we are celebrating, and we are not talking about this tragedy. What sort of Muslim? How you can face Rasulullah in the day of judgment? While he will ask you, what you had my mindset about my grandson Hussein? Have you never read the hadith of mine that I mentioned, that Al-Hasan wal Hussein Sayyid Shabab Ahlil Jannah, Husainu minni wa ana min al-Hussein. Hussein is from me and I am from Hussein. Hada Husainun fa'arifu. This is my Hussein. You know, get to know him. You didn't check all these ahadiths in your books. What sort of people we are? What sort of Muslim? How we can claim to be Muslim and we are not talking about Karbala and Imam Hussein and the sacrifice made by Imam Hussein? I surprise. I cannot accept the person who claim to be Muslim and ignore about the tragedy of Karbala and the sacrifice made by Imam Hussein والسلام, who preserved Islam by his sacrifice. We need to open up our minds. We need to do some research. We need to educate ourselves and motivate ourselves during these nights and during these days. Muharram is the month of motivation. Muharram is the month of sacrifice. Muharram is the month of purification. The Muharram is the month of revolution. We can change the destiny of ours. We can change the destiny of our ummah. If our ummah is suffering, it's because we are not following, we are not adhering the sacrifice made by Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. We have to follow the path of Imam Hussein so we can reform our ummah, so we can have our authorities abiding by Islamic principles, so we all can enjoy being in the ummah in which the principles of Islam is taken care. One of the good characters in Karbala, we can take lesson out of it, is the 13-year-old boy of Imam Hassan. You know, Al-Hasan wal Hussein, Sayyida Shabab Ahlil Jannah. Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein are the masters of youths of paradise. Both of them, their families, they sacrificed for the cause of Islam. In Karbala, we had the family of Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam. One of those were the Qasim ibn al-Hassan. The Qasim, the son of Hassan, was just about 13, teenager. Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, in the night of Ashura, while he was talking about the next day, the sacrifice, the day of sacrifice, the day of Ashura, the day of martyrdom, he was eager to know whether my name is there in the list or not. And he was not able to control himself. Finally, he opened up his mouth and he asked, "Oh, my uncle Hussein, is it any chance for me to achieve martyrdom? Is it my name is in the list of those who sacrifice tomorrow?" Imam Hussein asked a very beautiful question, which changed the mindset of the Muslims about the death. Some of us may be afraid of death, but the martyrs of Karbala, they killed the death and they became eternal. They achieved the martyrdom and they demonstrated the real translation and interpretation of وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. They are not dead. Do not assume those who give away their lives in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as dead. Do not assume them dead. They are alive. So the martyrs of Karbala, they killed the death and they became alive and they became eternal. Imam Hussein asked him, O Qasim, كيف الموت عندك? How you find the death? What is your opinion about death? Qasim replied immediately, أحلى من العسل. الموت عندي أحلى من العسل. What I see, death is tastier than honey, sweeter than honey. Once the death is in the way of Allah, for the cause of Allah, for the sake of Allah, that becomes sweeter than honey. That was the son of Imam Hassan, the Qasim, in the age of 13. It is narrated that in the day of Ashura, he was eager to go to the battlefield. And Imam Hussein was preventing him because he was the reminder of Imam Hassan. He was the legacy of Imam Hassan. But in the time, when the time comes, for the sake of Islam, everyone should go. It is narrated that Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam himself dressed him with the robe and cloak of Imam Hassan and turban of Imam Hassan. And it is narrated that Hamid ibn Muslim was one of the reporters in Karbala. He narrated that his age was less. He was a little boy. The sword was so big that he was hardly handling it. And the horse was big, and someone should assist him to ride the horse. And he went to the battlefield. He fought against the kuffar, the so-called Muslims who gathered to kill the grandson of Prophet. And finally he was thirsty, he was hungry. How can a person in the age of 13 with that circumstances fight against thousands? The thousands gathered surrounded him, and each one of them pelting stones and hitting by sword and killing him. Finally he cried, he shouted, Ya Amma Adrikni, O my uncle, help me. It is narrated that Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam went to assist him like with the speed of light. And he saw Imam Hassan, the legacy of Imam Hassan is laying on the ground. And he shouted, O Qasim, it is hard for your uncle to hear you calling me. I was not able to answer you. And if I was able to answer you, it was not benefiting you because it's the last minutes of Qasim. It is narrated that because of the horses moving from here and there, the parts of body of Qasim ibn al-Hassan was hard to recognize. And by that way, the martyrs of Karbala giving sacrifice one by one. And then Imam Hussein ﷺ brought the body of Qasim ibn al-Hassan, and it was hard for the ladies in the tent, each one of them coming and shouting and crying. And Abu Abdullah Hussein was the lonely person who was having sabr and patience up to a level that he never complained. All he said, رِضًا بِقَضَائِكَ وَتَسْلِيمًا لِأَمْرِكَ لَا مَعْبُودَ سِوَاكَ صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله لا يوم كيومك يا أبا عبد الله السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام.